Today on the BitGeek podcast, we welcome special guest Dagan Moriarty. Hey, welcome back to the BitGeek podcast, where we like to geek out over the things we love in nerd culture. I'm your host, Ron Avis. Sitting with me to my left is my co-host, the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright. You gotta say his name all fancy, like Dagan Moriarty.
Danger Moriarty. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh,
Because he's got the danger mouse.
I meant to say, that's why I said that. I was thinking it, but I meant to say Dagan, but that's kind of funny though. There's a old Wind in the Willows series that used to air on the Disney Channel back in the day. It was like in a claymation kind of style, stop motion animation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I never heard of it
But
before.
it's from the 80s. And I found it on Amazon and bought it. And the Mr. Toad from Wind in the Willows is the guy that voices Mr. Toad is Danger Mouse.
Aw.
It's so funny hearing him talking.
So he sounds just
It's
like Danger Mouse?
Yeah. I never knew it as a kid. And I don't, kids just, for whatever reason, it's like, at least I didn't. I don't know if I was just an idiot or what, but it's like you don't really put two
You
and two
don't
together.
think about it when you're a kid.
Yeah, it's like, because I watched Danger Mouse at that time
Yeah.
and Wind and Willows at that time, but it's not, hey, look, they sound the same,
And if it's anything like nowadays, it's like 5 to 10 actors working. They're doing all the voices.
Oh,
It's like,
and I
let somebody else have a chance, pal.
I forget what brought up Frank Welker.
He does everything.
Oh, it was when we saw Lion King, and I said something to Ruth like, who all of the lion roars in the animated Lion King,
Right.
the first Lion King, none of them were like real lions. It was all done by Frank Welker.
Right.
And she was like, why does that name sound familiar? Who does he voice? And I'm like,
You got a minute?
any cartoon character. Like every cartoon character ever.
Yeah,
I think that's what
pretty
I
much.
said.
Want to go ahead and just jump right into this episode? I'm very excited.
Yeah.
We have a guest with us. He is an animator for a little TV show you may have heard of. Emmy award-winning children's television show called Sesame Street.
I've heard of it.
Heard of that? Yep.
Yeah.
And he's also the host and co-star, maybe some might even say the star of his own podcast, a retro-themed podcast similar to ours called Knockback. And I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but it's fantastic.
Not before you telling me about it. I hadn't, unfortunately.
I don't want to bury the lead anymore. Right now, I have on the phone with us Mr. Dagan Moriarty.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. And we got like a hey guys. That's pretty cool.
Hi guys.
Hi guys. Is the patented greeting from Dagan.
That's right.
Dagan, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a guest on our show, our little show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm honored. I'm honored you would ask. I'm honored to be on. It's going to be fun.
You're a like-minded individual to Nick and myself. You're similar in age. We were also born in the 70s, so.
Oh, okay. So you got all right. Oh, well, that's I'm in rare company. I never meet anyone as old as me. I feel like I'm always the old man.
Well, what's the joke? You're always kind of like talking about how like you're in your 20s. Or
Oh yeah, I always change my age. Yeah, I try.
Born in 1987.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, your co-host ordinarily, your brother Colin, he's like a good 10, 11 years younger than you are, right?
Yeah, we're almost 11 years apart.
Oh, wow.
That's really interesting. And I can relate to that in a bit too, because my brother was similar in age range, and he was older. He was my older brother, but
Okay.
like I feel that kind of kinship, like you and Colin have, like kind of reminds me of like the relationship I had with me and my brother.
I love that. I love when people say that. I hear that pretty often. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of the show. Like people can see themselves in us and in our relationship. I think that's so neat.
Well, you guys are just, I mean, you seem so close. You guys have just this bond that it's just such a wonderful thing to listen to you guys talk on your podcast.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for saying that.
No problem. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on was not just because of your podcast, which is wonderful. I wanted to get to know more of Dagan the animator.
Sure.
One of my favorite things about your podcast is when you have, animation-centric episodes. And
I love that you love. Yeah, I love when people enjoy those, because that's really that's me in my wheelhouse.
Right. And one of the things I wanted to ask you right off the bat was, I know from listening to your show that you were like a massive influence on your brother, your younger brother, when it comes to video games.
Sure. Yes.
And one thing I've always been curious about is, like, did you have somebody who was sort of guiding you? Who was your influence when it came to becoming an artist?
It's a great question. And I had a figure in my life. It was my grandfather, my grandpa, my mother's dad. He was we were very close to my mom's side of the family growing up, and we were very close to my grandma and grandpa. And we would see, the type of thing where it was, if you didn't see them, if a whole week had gone by and we hadn't seen them, that would be weird, So, and he was a really wonderful artist, but he didn't get to, I think there was always a little frustration there because he didn't really pursue it as a profession. He was actually a beautician. He was actually a hairdresser and had his own salon in Manhattan. So that's what he did for a living. He ran a hair salon. And which is a lot of funny stories about that, because he had a lot of, he was a really funny individual, and he had a lot of funny clients. Like Don Johnson was a client for a while. So there's a lot of really funny and fun stories around my grandpa, but he was always a big figure in my life, and he's really the one who taught me how to draw. But beyond that, he had a rare thing in that, especially for people of his generation, being born in the 30s, he loved cartoons and animation. And he taught me how to draw Mickey Mouse when I was 5 years old. And that was sort of the genesis of my fascination with drawing and with animation. I always tell this part of the story too. He taught me how to color. I would always color in coloring books with him. And he's the one who taught me how to like shade with the crayons and how you go to dark to light. And every time he drew something, you would sit, you guys remember how it is when you're a kid, you sit and draw with lots of different adults, but he was actually an adult that really knew how to do it. So when I did it with him, it was like magical. It was like, how is he making that come out of the crayon? How is he making that come out of the pencil? So that was the original seed for me, for my interest in art. And he always really encouraged that all through my life, even up through like junior high school and high school. And into college, he was always a really prominent figure in my life and kind of cheering for me from the sidelines and teaching me how to draw and coaching me and telling me how to do this better. So he was really the prominent. There were other figures as well, but my grandpa was really the guy who pushed me into being an animator. And it's funny because I knew what I wanted to do from that time. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I was like, if this is a thing I could do, this is what I want to do for a living. So I always kind of knew that that's what I would do for a living. So I was really lucky to have that,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's a really sweet story. So he was a hairdresser. So like he never became a cartoonist.
No.
Maybe in those days, like it just was more like it was not a traditional profession, like how can you get work as a cartoonist?
There wasn't much, especially in New York. I mean, now he did life drawing classes at night in Manhattan. At that time, it was something called the Art Students League, and basically commercial artists, people in advertising, maybe cartoonists, illustrators, even animators at the few New York studios in those days would go at night, and they would draw nudes, they would draw models from life and everything like that. And I think he rubbed elbows with a lot of people that worked as commercial artists, whether they were in advertising or whether they were cartoonists or animators. And I think there was really always that frustrated side of him that didn't pursue that for a living, because he was quite talented and he was quite smitten with it. But for whatever reason, he never did that. And he would always say to me, in retrospect, it made a lot of sense. He would always say to me, like, don't waste your talent. Don't get sidetracked. So I think I think some of it was like kind of living vicariously through me too, and seeing that kind of talent in me. I don't know if I was as good as he was, but seeing a little bit of that maybe, and saying, kind of pushing me in that direction if I was interested in going in that direction. So I always had that sort of support, which is, it means a lot. You know, it's not everybody gets to have that.
When you're young, you need that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's important to have someone there, like you say, being your cheerleader and not tell you like, well, that's not a practical job profession.
Right.
Like my son all the time was like, Daddy, can I get a job as a game tester? And like the adult part of me is like, well, yes, you could. But you'll probably need another job to make ends meet. But your grandfather, it sounds like he was able to at least find some sort of creative outlet as a hairdresser.
Yeah, he did. And he did, you know, he had a little wood shop in the basement. He was really into Christmas. So he made like his own Christmas decorations. And yeah, it's true. He always had a creative outlet. He always had sketch pads in the closet with his charcoal drawings and his life drawings. And, you know, when he was old enough to have grandkids, sharing that with them. And yeah, he always did. He always did have a creative outlet. That's true. That's a great point about him.
Now, did he provide you with any like books or anything about animation and cartooning?
He did. He would bring me. He's the one who really got me interested in cartooning too, because it was a ritual. When I would see them on the weekends, we'd go over for Sunday dinner or something. He would always give me a book. But what happened was he would come home on the train. He would commute via, you know, from Long Island to New York City on the train, and he would always stop and bring a book for us. And so every time I saw him, he gave me a book. I remember he gave me books on dinosaurs. He gave me books on how to draw animals. It could have been just an illustrated children's book, a Dr. Seuss book, whatever. But he always bring me books.
That's very cool.
And yeah, he was really, I mean, looking back, especially again for his generation to have that kind of mindset and to, you know, to kind of plant that seed in me without ever really talking about it. Mm-hmm. You know, he would never be like, Dagan, I'm giving you these books because someday I want you to be an artist. And, you know, it was always just like doing it without saying anything about it. But what he was doing was obvious. You know, he saw that I had an interest and he was trying to kindle it. You know, he was trying to spark it even further. So, yeah, without him, I mean, it's one of those figures in your life. It's like, without him, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, who knows what I would have been?
Well, he made your childhood that much more magical and made it seem that much more possible, which is such a cool thing.
He really did. He really did. Yeah, he was an awesome man. He passed early. He passed relatively young in age. I think he was 75. And I was just entering, I think, my last year of college when he passed. So he never even got to see me. You know, I think I got my first job in '98. So he never got to see me work in the business or anything like that.
That's heartbreaking.
It would have meant a lot. It would have meant a lot to him.
That's heartbreaking. I was going to ask you if he was able to enjoy, like, look, Ma, I made it. Like, look, Grandpa, I made it.
Yeah. He would have totally dug that. He would have totally dug. He just missed it. He just missed it.
So he was your mom's dad, right?
He was my mom's dad.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this might be embarrassing for you to answer. I don't know, but would you say you're the most talented artist in your family?
You know what? Besides my grandpa, my mom's cousin, I've talked about him before, but I don't know how often I've talked about him on the podcast. My mom's cousin, his name was Carl, and he was my grandpa's nephew, my grandpa's brother's son. He was also, he's still with us. He's a wonderful individual. His name is Carl Ruggiero, and he was a wonderful artist as well. Very, very talented, fine artist. He was a working fashion illustrator in the 60s and 70s. And he also took me under his wing later on when I was in high school. And he's the one who introduced me kind of into the fine art world. And he would take me to his gallery shows out on Long Island. And he was a pretty well-known artist, you know, showing artists in certain circles out on Long Island. And so he was very talented too. So, and my sister, Allie, my younger sister, Allie, I should say Colin and I's younger sister, Allie, is also an artist that went to art school too and is talented. So am I forgetting anybody else? So there are other artists in my family.
Allie, is that your sister who's a teacher also?
She's a teacher too. Both of my sisters are teachers, but Allie's the art teacher.
Gotcha. Yeah. So teacher, you were really quick to defend teachers in that episode. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Between
and
my
Colin
two sisters,
was too. Colin wasn't necessarily like ragging on teachers or anything.
But we brought him around.
Definitely brought him around. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about your work at Sesame.
Sure.
And I don't know how much you can talk about because I feel like you've maybe kept a little bit guarded as far as like what it is you do there day to day. But
yeah.
If you can, is there any way that you could like talk about what you do there exactly?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, of course. If you're interested, absolutely. The only
Very
time
interested.
I can't talk about anything on, I work at Sesame Workshop in our in-house animation team. We call ourselves SWAT because it's Sesame Workshop Animation Team. So we think we're cool calling ourselves the SWAT team. Nobody else in the building thinks it's cool, but we think it's cool.
It sounds cool.
And so basically we start. For me, I started at Sesame. I started my career in animation in '98, but I started my career at Sesame in 2009, and I started there on a team, oddly enough, in what was sort of their Japanese division. We were working on a project for Japanese cram schools, which in Japan, I don't know how much you guys know about this kind of stuff. I didn't know about it, but in Japan, basically the kids go to school during the day, and then at night, I think especially for middle class to upper middle class families to wealthy families, they send their kids to schools called cram schools, which is basically designed to teach them English through curriculum based, through learning science, through learning math and reading and social studies and everything. They basically learn English. So it's basically going to school again in the evening. Wow. And basically these schools are run sort of similar to our charter schools in the US. They're run by private companies who compete with each other. So we had a big Japanese cram school company sort of come to Sesame in a client capacity and say, we want you to design all the curriculum for this cram school, which is like 4 years worth of content. And it's going to be interactive games and animation and printables, printable workbooks and flashcards and the whole gamut. So I started at Sesame working in, basically what was basically Sesame Japan. And we did that for 3 or 4, which was really kind of a strange thing, but it was awesome, especially for animators in New York, because animation's not as big in New York as it is in LA. It's much smaller. It's much more specialized. So we were really psyched just to have 4 years worth of work. And a lot of my team just happened to come from a TV animation background. And what happened was when the project wrapped up, we basically became Sesame's in-house animation division. Now, Sesame Workshop never had that. They would always just outsource their animation to smaller studios or independent contractors or independent filmmakers. So they never had an in-house animation team. So we became the first in-house animation team at Sesame. And I think we're only like 3 years old now.
Oh, wow.
So we just service the company in an animation capacity, doing animation for Sesame Street, doing animation for all the international. Sesame Street exists. I think, I don't want to mess this up, but like there's 36 different Sesame Streets. There's Turkey and the Spanish language stuff and Syria and the African countries.
Now, is that just dubbed, or do they have different actors and own their own?
No, it's all different. They have different actors, different puppets, different characters. Yeah, some of the characters are carried over, like the really popular ones, like Cookie and Elmo and everybody. But yeah, they're all different. So we basically get to service the whole company in an animation capacity. Now, the biggest thing we do right now is we do the Elmo's World segment for Sesame Street and a newer segment called Abby's Amazing Adventures.
Oh my gosh.
So Sesame Street is a half hour long. So we do 10 minutes of the show basically now. And in the past I couldn't talk about Abby because it didn't air yet. But now that it's aired, there's no NDAs or anything like that, so I could talk about it. So that's what we do. And I started out as an assistant art director there. And I basically, about 3 months ago, I switched over to animation because I really missed animating day to day. So I sort of took I essentially took a demotion just so I could animate and work from home. But I missed it so much, and I'm so happy doing it. I really missed it. So that's what I do. That's what we do day to day at Sesame, and it's been awesome, dude. I always tell everybody at work, if this ended tomorrow, we should be so proud because we're the ones who started this. The company is 50 years old now, and they never had an in-house animation team. So for us to be those first guys to do that,
that's really cool.
It has been a treat. It's been a lot of fun. And I grew up on Sesame Street. You guys, you can't grow up in the 70s. We had to come through Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 70s, like Nick at first, he was like, "Oh, I wonder if Dagan's responsible for that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5." I was like, "He's not that old. He's not that old."
I want to remake.
I stopped
between
myself.
you and me, though, I want to remake those pinball things.
Oh, they're so great.
I've been trying to pitch that for a year. I mean, it's kind of blasphemous to remake those. I would feel like there's a lot to live up to there, but I would love to do that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I have so many questions, like, from what you just said. Like, this is all so interesting.
Sure.
So my first question for you is, have you ever been to Japan?
No, I've never been. Now, Colin and I have been talking about going because he's been a few times and he really loves it. He's always singing the praises. And this is a guy, of course, if you know Colin, he hates to travel. He's pretty much a homebody.
Yeah.
Crazy about Japan. And
he loves his Five Guys and sitting at home and ordering food.
Yeah, you know, Colin. So, but he's always like, you know what? I know how much Japan means to you in anime and manga, and you're an old anime head. Like, I want to be there when you experience Japan for the first time. And my wife was always notoriously like, Japan, like that's like the 10th place I want to go on my list, But now she's warming up to Japan a lot more in the last couple of years, so it's kind of fun. But no, I've never been. I'm long overdue. Have you guys been to Japan?
I have not.
My sister's been, yeah.
Oh, that's not.
Such a culture shock. I don't even know how I would handle it. It's just. It
know.
Sounds like a lot of people speak English over there, so that maybe they wouldn't be such a big problem.
Right.
But yeah, I know that Nick, he's way into Japan and Japanese culture and all that stuff, like growing up. So I think he would for sure jump at the opportunity.
I've always found it fascinating.
Me too. I just almost like every aspect of it. It sounds terrible to say almost because you're kind of generalizing, but like really literally beyond the media, I'm a huge anime guy, huge manga guy, but even beyond that, just the culture, it's just the landscape, the architecture. I mean, just everything about it is fascinating to me. The history.
Yeah.
The history. Yeah. So another thing I was going to ask you before was, so do you have like a sizzle reel or anything of animation projects that you've worked on in the past?
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? I was just talking to somebody about this recently. The last time I cut a reel was right before I went to Sesame. So 2009. I know that's up on YouTube actually. And basically that was from a Cartoon Network show that I worked on. Like every clip from that is basically from this one show I worked on.
Was that Happy Tree Friends?
The Mr. Men show.
Oh, okay.
The Mr. Men show, which was basically, that's a whole nother story for another time. But Cartoon Network, I don't know how many people know about this, had like an ill-fated preschool block that they were trying to compete with like Nick Jr. and all that kind of stuff. I guess this was probably like in the early aughts. They thought they should go into that too. And we did the Mr. Men show, which is basically based on those little Mr. Men and little Mrs. books. Super cute. You guys would know if you saw them.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Mr. Tickle and Mr. whatever, Mr. Happy and all that kind of stuff.
I remember.
So, but what's funny
Google
about
that.
animation, right? All those do. What is, I'm looking at my shelf because I have, what is it? Mr. Grumpy, right? All those guys, Little Miss Sunshine.
They're like little round.
Yeah, they're really simple little circles with arms and legs.
I know what he's talking about.
Cool.
So we did the animated series for that for Cartoon Network, but I was just talking to an animator friend about this. Basically, in animation, once you're in and you develop connections and you have a reputation, you're basically getting jobs through word of mouth. So, thank goodness at some point cutting reels and taking tests and all that kind of stuff sort of ended because your circle, the people that you run with or, your all your professional connections, they basically you take each other from job to job. So I haven't had a reel. It dawned on me the other day. I haven't had to make a reel in like 10 years. But, that's also bad because it's like, if I needed work or, I need to scramble. So.
Well, it's like when you were at a job for a really long time, any job, and you get canned, you're like instantly like, oh my God, I got to update my resume.
Exactly. It's the same thing.
But for you have to come up with a reel? Would you call it a reel?
Yeah, we call it demo reel. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, the things that are on YouTube, is that something that's easily like searchable that people can find, or is that?
Yeah, definitely. You could search. If you put my name in and put Mr. Men, that demo reel will come up. I remember because yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's from 2009. I have a little like intro music, which is I remember like the Ninja Gaiden theme, part of the Ninja Gaiden theme song.
Nice.
For the beginning of it. So yeah, I haven't watched it in a while, but it's still up there as far as I know.
Tell you what, why don't you go over to aisle 7 and unpack those boxes?
Gladly. There's too much terror lurking in this aisle. This must be the box I'm supposed to unpack. Oh, thank goodness, a trusty steed.
Now, another thing that came to mind, like, so you have young children.
I do.
Now, working for Sesame Street, are there any like perks that you get to take advantage of? Like, did your kids ever met Big Bird or anything like that?
You know what's funny about my kids? I say this all the time. I was just saying this at work the other day. I go into the office like once every 2 weeks, and I was just talking to a friend about this. And no, my kids, oddly enough, because my daughter was born in 2007, so she's certainly of an age where Sesame Street was still fairly big. I'm not saying it's not big anymore, but I think it was even bigger in the mid 2000s for some reason. But for some reason, my kids were never interested in Sesame Street, which was almost blasphemous for me because I watched Sesame Street until I was like 16 years old.
I mean,
literally.
I just
literally,
involuntarily made a face.
I always blame that on Colin because he was 11 years younger than me, but I wasn't watching it because he was in the room. I was really digging it.
Hey,
you know?
Whoever you gotta like blame it on to keep being a kid for as long as you possibly can, which is something about you that I truly appreciate. You've talked about the Peter Pan complex or whatever.
Oh, I really have that. I really do have that. It's terrible. But it's funny for everybody except my wife. It's hilarious.
yeah, they don't typically find it all that humorous. But I mean, you have a job that keeps, like you get paid to work for Sesame Street. So
That's true.
So I would like it if you could to maybe take me through a little bit as far as now that you're animating.
Yeah.
Do you animate? Nobody like just animates on paper anymore or whatever. Like, how do you like?
No.
What do you do? Like, what do you work in? Are there certain programs that you guys always work in, or?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a professionally trained. I'm a traditionally trained 2D animator. I mean, I was really lucky because I always say this, but we were my generation. I'm 45 now. Were the last vestiges of going to art school in the mid to late 90s, where we were trained in traditional animation. And when we got out of school in the late 90s, there were still traditional animation jobs. Like my first job out of school was working on animation for CD-ROMs. CD-ROMs were really big at that point before the internet kicked off and everything. Kids loved CD-ROMs, like Knowledge Adventure and Fisher Price, and everything was CD-ROMs, Disney and everything. So we did all traditional animation that was digitally inked and painted. So we got a taste of working in the traditional sort of pipeline. But right after that, like the very early 2000s, was when traditional animation sort of became digital, and it became Flash and After Effects.
Oh, yeah.
So we took it over. We were fortunate because we took everything we knew about animation, drawing and timing and staging, and we knew the language, and we just brought it into the computer. So now we were doing, and that's what we're still using, Flash, After Effects, and Toon Boom, because we're not CG guys. We're not using Maya and doing 3D stuff. We're 2D guys. So it's basically, it's mostly After Effects and Flash. And Toon Boom, Harmony Toon Boom is sort of getting a foothold in the States, but that software is primarily used in Europe and Canada. For some reason, it just hasn't caught on in the United States as fast.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Is that all Macintosh, PC? Like, what is that?
Could be both. Could be either one.
Okay.
Either one. Yeah, they're both fine. I use a
Yeah,
PC
I've
at
never
home
heard
and a
of
Mac
it.
at work. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's cross-platform.
So I feel like I've heard you in a show say something about you would work at home and you would spend like hours to animate just like a few seconds or something.
Oh yeah.
That's still the case?
It is. Yeah, it's so funny too because I was just thinking about this morning, and I get in such a time warp, which I think is typical of a lot of animators in that you're kind of living. Let's say I wake up, I start working at 8 in the morning, and I go to 6 in the afternoon. I go to 6 in the evening. I'm living you're concentrated and you're living in this little 5-second time frame. And when you have to get out of that and like go hang out with the family or go food shopping or cook dinner or whatever, it's like you have to adjust, because I was just living in this little 5-second span where I'm like going frame by frame and moving part by part and moving character by character. So yeah, it's very meticulous, especially if you want to do it well. You know, I was just saying this on Twitter the other day that every good piece of good animation you see, whether it's in a film or a show or a commercial, that wasn't paid for. That was the animator working longer than they should have because they wanted to look good. You know, because that's never in the budget. That's never in, you know, deadlines. It's very deadline driven. You know, we work for HBO. Sesame Street's on HBO now. So, you know, they want it done, you know, when it has to be done, and it can't, you know, it has to air. So you can't push it. So yeah. So the long hours and it's a meticulous, it's so funny. I always say this. I have no patience for anything except for, it's all used up for animation.
Right.
It's all used up for animation.
Well, it's like your wife when she was with kids all. Now, I'm sorry. Did you your wife? What grades does she teach?
She's high school. She's high school.
Oh, high school. God bless. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have any patience when you get home. Like that's all your patience is spent on your profession.
Absolutely.
But,
yeah. She's great. I mean, I really admire teachers because it's the type of job where you have to be on all the time.
Yeah.
Like I could be grumpy. I don't have to deal with people. I just have to get my work done. It doesn't matter what my mood is at that point, you know. But yeah, teachers and that kind of job, that's so, I mean, you know, like Colin was saying, like they shouldn't get the summer, or you know, he was jealous because they got the summers off. I'm like, dude, they need that. They just spent, you know, 9 months, you know, day in and day out. You know, it's like, oh,
I'm personally so grateful that Laura, my wife, she does get summers off because my 2 kids, they get to spend that time with her. Like they don't have to go to a babysitter or someplace. Like
yes,
they just
very important.
They just get the whole summer with her.
Absolutely.
But going back to your point about like, you know, that time, you know, they're not getting paid for that. They're just doing that because they want to. It has to be good. And I was just having a similar conversation once again, bringing it back to my kid. He was asking me about game development, and I said, you know, if you're going to do that, you're not going to have a 9 to 5. If you're going to work really long hours, but you're going to love your work. And you know, you have to be prepared to spend that time to make it good.
Absolutely.
Because if your work is bad, then you know that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're kind of staking your reputation on that. And I think it's just I think it's ingrained in a lot of creative people. I think it's just about taking pride in your work. And if you're going to spend, I always say this about animation specifically, it takes a really long time to do it badly. So why spend all that time to do it badly? You can take a little more time and do it well. You know what I mean? And take pride in your work.
Absolutely.
So that's my outlook anyway.
Okay, so I was going to move on to the next. I could just go on and on, but I'm not. So many wonderful questions.
Anything you want to talk about.
Well, okay, I'm going to have to ask you this because I know the format of you guys with Knockback. You don't talk about things if they're still going on, and the subject comes up of South Park from time to time.
Sure.
I feel like you guys are just itching to talk about South Park. You know, can we make an exception for South Park because it's such an interesting thing? And the thing I was going to ask you is, what are your thoughts on their turnaround time? Like they go from concept to air in a week.
It's nuts. I mean, that is just, it is crazy that they could do that. They've been doing that for over 20 years now?
Yeah, I think 97 was when they started. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, I love the fact that the show could be topical. And that was sort of one of the threads. It was like, we want this show to make fun of things when they're still relevant and parody things when they're still relevant. And that was the idea behind it, which is brilliant. And but the fact that such a small team could do that and do it so well and do it so consistently and make it as funny as it is and make the style as consistent as it's amazing. It's a feat. It's an absolute feat. It still floors me after all this time. It's unbelievable.
It's like an animated Saturday Night Live. Like they just start from the beginning every single week.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And they're still doing it. And, you know, the fact that they're not tired of it and the fact that it's still funny and fresh. The characters really carry that show. They're wonderful characters. They're hilarious characters. So, yeah, South Park, I'm actually really afraid. First of all, South Park for Knockback has to be a multi-parter. Yeah. You know, it can't be just a one thing. And also, I'm way behind and I haven't watched it in quite a while, actually. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be one of those topics that we do eventually, but it's gonna be huge.
I
It's
don't
gonna
think
be
they're
a
ever going to
huge
stop, Dagan. I don't think they're ever going to stop.
You could say that about The Simpsons too, right?
I'm so grateful for that. They just keep chugging along.
Just keep going.
Yep. Okay, so moving along, the next question I had for you is again, I don't know if you want to answer this or not, but so have you ever considered pulling a Don Bluth and leaving Sesame and starting your own studio?
Absolutely. I consider that every day in my life, actually. I'm not afraid to say that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but you know what it is? It's not about being unhappy at one place. I mean, when I worked at Disney, I had those thoughts. It's like, I think when you're a creative person and you have ideas, then you inherently just want to strike out and, kind of pursue your own vision, and I think that's what it is. I love animating in a service capacity. I love working on a show that I didn't create because that comes with its own challenges and its own fun. And also, it's kind of nice not to be fully responsible for something and just be responsible for the animation or just be responsible for the art direction. So there's something, and collect a paycheck and, that stability and working for a big corporation and all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful.
50 seasons.
50, yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. And I enjoy that. I really love that. I'm grateful for that. But, when you have your own vision and your own ideas and life is only so long, then you want to, I think about it a lot. And it's something that I think I'll always think about until the day I finally just strike out and do it. I have a lot of plans to do it. And, you gotta just kind of start it off. What I have to do is really start it off on the side while I'm working. I mean, that's the smartest way to go about something, especially if, you have a mortgage and family, and you guys know how it is.
Of course.
So, yeah, there's a lot of plans. Some are getting a lot closer to fruition than they used to be.
I want to get to that eventually, yes.
Yeah, it's something that I think about constantly.
Now, I know you're an admirer of Don Bluth, which is what made me think of the question. And I know that you work for Disney, which is, like preschool, level entertainment. And I just thought,
Sure.
You must be frustrated sometimes because you're an adult and you have adult, themed thoughts and ideas of the things you would like to do.
Sure. Absolutely. You know what, though? It's funny. People have said that to me before, and I have to cop to being, I find myself very much at home working on preschool content. And I think that probably developed over the course of my career, especially because I spent the majority of my career in New York, and we just happened to have a lot of the preschool content. We did, that's where Blue's Clues was done. That's where almost all of Nick Jr.'s earlier content was done. So, and, of course, Sesame Street. And so we had a lot of that going on in New York. So a lot of my jobs were in preschool content. So, but I feel very at home in that world. And I would like to see content for younger kids get a little smarter and get a little cooler.
I feel like they've done that in recent years.
That's true. It's definitely stepped up. That's definitely true. But I think there's a lot of room for, I don't want to spill the beans on a lot of the ideas I have yet, but I think there's a lot of room for speaking to kids on their level. And, even Sesame's gotten a lot better with that. But, sort of not talking down to kids and actually presenting things to kids that, in a little more, not only in a little more mature way, but also just in a way that they could relate to more. It's like, I always get really upset when skateboarding is portrayed, being an avid skateboarder and growing up skateboarding, like when skateboarding is portrayed badly in media, especially kids' cartoons, where it's like, skateboards don't look like that. Like, it's just like wheels attached to a board. There's no trucks on the board. Like, skateboards have always been drawn in illustrations the same way. Like a modern skateboard doesn't look that way. And kids recognize that. Kids know, like, you're lying to them. Like, that's not what my big brother's skateboard looks like, So that type of thing.
Kids are smart. They're aware of authenticity. Like, they know these things. Absolutely.
You said it. That's the word. Authenticity. That's the really big thing. And a lot of my ideas are actually geared towards younger kids. But I would like to branch out and do stuff for, older kids. I certainly have stuff, geared towards teenagers that I would like to do, and adult content. But, I don't really ever feel pigeonholed. I think as long as you have ideas and you hold on to them and you develop them, even if you're not sharing them yet, that's all that matters. Just being true to yourself as far as, what kind of content you want to work on,
Well said. Okay. My next question for you is kind of a silly one. So
I like silly.
Nick and I have, always been doodlers and drawers, coming up through, as far as back as we can remember. And for me personally, Nick's way more talented than me. I've always had a problem drawing hands. Like, I don't know what it's like heads, faces, like feet, whatever. Like, I'm fine. But like hands, I've always struggled with. Is there anything that you've been bad at drawing that you just wish you were better at?
Yeah, I'm bad at drawing hands. I mean, I'm good at drawing cartoony hands, but drawing, for me, I'll 100% cop to this. I found my way through art, through style. And a lot of it was through admiring anime since I was a very young kid. Like, I loved the graphic nature of it. I loved, the simplicity. And when I say graphic, I'm not talking about like tentacle porn. I'm talking about like the visually graphic nature of anime, that it's like lean and that it's really beautifully drawn and it's simple and it's line versus curves. There's no extraneous detail. It's elegant. And I've always been really drawn to that. And I kind of found my way with art through ideas and through style. And I sort of shortchanged myself a little bit on anatomy and life drawing, because when I was younger and just wanted to get into animation and just wanted to be like Don Bluth, or just wanted to be like, Katsuhiro Otomo or whoever I admired at the time, I compare myself to my wife a lot because she's a really traditionally trained illustrator and like knows all the muscles and knows all the bone structure and the anatomy of a hand. And when she draws it, she just inherently knows it because she drilled herself on it for so many years. So, when it comes to drawing, hands are hard to draw because they're hard to fake. You have to really know how that thing is built, how that thing is constructed. A face is easy to stylize, but a hand, you got to know the anatomy, you got to know the bone structure and the muscles and everything. So I'm not the best at that. I could never be a professional, Marvel comic book artist. I'm much more of a cartoonist. In a traditional, I
love your style. Like, it's so cute.
Oh, thank you.
It's the cutest. Like, I don't even really know what to compare it to. It's just so Dagan. If people aren't aware, like, you can go out to Instagram. It's what Dagan likes to draw.
Yes,
so
that's
Dagan.
My Instagram. Yeah,
it's. I love your style. Like, whenever you do, and you'll do it in your style, but with other IPs like Ninja Turtles and.
Yes, I love doing that.
Oh,
I love doing that.
It's so. I get so envious when I see you guys do like Patreon giveaways or whatever. Like, oh my God, he's Ninja Turtles, like that lucky guy.
Thanks. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I mean, the style just comes from, it's just such a combination of everything I grew up loving. From newspaper comics to, graffiti to skateboard graphics to, of course, anime and all the old 50s UPA cartoon, whatever it was, Bugs Bunny. Everything's just sort of thrown in the pot. And, I've always been kind of a hedonist too when it comes to art, because I just do what's fun for me. So that's always been my approach to art, and I've been able to make it work. I've been lucky. I've been very lucky.
Nick, if you're going to check out one of their podcasts, I recommend you check out their Calvin and Hobbes episode. That's an excellent.
Love Calvin.
They talk about Bill Watterson and how that's one of my favorite episodes.
I love his style.
Oh, he was wonderful. That was a fun episode.
So, Dagan, speaking of styles, so Nick and I are pretty obsessed with pixel art.
Oh, cool.
Like hand-drawn animation in video games, like, it's the best. And the renaissance in those types of games, like, just, I love it. Have you ever dabbled in that art style?
You know what? The only time I never dabbled in that art style, whether it be 8-bit or 16-bit or anything like that. The only time I actually worked on a game was I took a hiatus from Sesame because a friend of mine was involved with a Kickstarter. I don't know if you guys ever heard me talk about this, but they kickstarted a reboot for Leisure Suit Larry.
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't mind talking about that again, that would be awesome.
They did. Yeah. So they did it. Basically, Al Lowe came back and he kickstarted a whole new Leisure Suit Larry. I think he got like close to $1 million. And a friend of mine was involved in it. And he said, you know what, you should really come. It's going to be like 6 months. Just come and work on this thing. Sesame will hire you back. Like, if this doesn't take off and we don't get another project, So I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it.
That's a
And I
Malox
went-
moment right there, buddy.
it was so much fun, and it was the first time I got to work with, sort of in a video game mentality where everything we worked on had to loop, and no piece of animation that we did was independent. Everything had to loop into itself, and we had to work with hand in hand with the programmers, and I got to see how they sort of individualized all the frames and incorporated them into the game and how it would work and how it would scale. So that's the only time I ever dealt with that. But we were doing hand-drawn animation, and they were inking and painting it in the computer. So we were very fortunate in the fact that we didn't have to, we could do very full animation, and, it was digitized and everything apart from us, later on down the pipeline. But that's the only time I've ever endeavored to work on anything like that.
I remember those Leisure Suit Larry games. Like I remember working at Babbage's and seeing those like on the shelves.
Oh, that's awesome. They were awesome.
They were good looking games. So I was going to ask you then, I mean, it seems to make sense, like you have a brother who has connections in the video game industry. Like, have you ever thought about taking another stab at maybe creating another game in like the video game?
Colin and I talk about it. I've certainly thought about it independently. I know a lot of guys that are programmers from way back in my early, I was very involved in the .com boom in the early 2000s, and we did a lot of internet stuff. I met a lot of programmers back then that are now involved in the console world and, the PC world and stuff. So yeah, it's something I think about a lot. I consider myself more of a fan. I think I'm a little intimidated by it because I don't know the technical aspects of it all at all. I'm very much, on the art side and not at all on the technical side. So I find it intimidating, but I can't believe what these small, I'm not even talking about people like Yacht Club and, MDHR and all those guys do. But like even beyond that, like these small little mom and pop 2 or 3 guy operations, the games that these guys are making now is insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, Nick and I have had a couple of guests who've, teams of 1 or 2 people who've made games. Like Nathan with Mommy's Best Games. Yeah. He's releasing a game it's already on Steam, but it's coming out on Switch called Pig Eat Ball, which is really,
oh wow,
it's really good. He does it all himself. All the art,
that's amazing.
I think he might outsource the music, he said, but a lot of it he's just done on his own. Mm-hmm. And then we talked to some other guys who created their own arcade, just the 2 of those guys, everything on their own. So.
Oh, that was the Arcadeaholics?
Yeah, the Arcadeaholics guys. Yeah, they were really nice guys. I watched that show. Oh, you did? Okay,
I watched
great.
That show too. Yeah, that was great. Great show.
So this is kind of like another silly, like it doesn't really fit into anything necessarily, but so since Nick and I are both drawers growing up, and Nick more so than me, did you ever have people that you would find come up to you and just ask you to draw stuff? Like just draw like a Howard the Duck or something. I don't know.
You know what? I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I've always been surrounded. I mean, even in art school and now in animation the last 20 years, I'm with people that could draw. Mm-hmm. You know what? No, I mean, that's not true. I mean, people do still ask me, like at Sesame, I'm just like the birthday card guy. It's like, all right, so it's those, it's Pammy's birthday, draw her birthday. You got to do the birthday card. We got to get it done in the next 2 days. Like
you feel the pressure, like, all right, I got to do a cartoon, I guess.
So yeah, so that there is that. And I've always been the guy too with like, I just love to draw. I love to doodle. So even at work, I'll draw on Post-it notes and make like huge walls of them in my cubicle or my office or whatever. So, and it's funny how many artists don't do that. Like, they go and draw at work and maybe they'll draw on the weekend, but they don't draw like extraneously at work. But I'm that guy who's always drawing. Even when I'm drawing in the meeting, I'm not paying attention. I'm just drawing, So I guess there is that. I guess there is like, oh, Dagan, like it would be so cool if you drew Astro Boy in your style, And then I'll take it as a personal challenge and just do it. Oh, they take advantage of me that way, because they know I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you got to feign being put off a little bit just so that everybody doesn't come to you. But on the inside, you're like, yeah, I like the challenge. I like how you put that.
That's a great question.
Now, you mentioned your wife and how she's an artist as well. Did you guys meet in art school, or how did you guys?
We did.
That's so met. Cool.
We did. Yeah, we met in Philly. She was an illustration student at UArts, and I was an animation student at the Art Institute of Philly. I knew her roommates just through her roommates were kind of friends with guys that I skateboarded with, basically. And Helene, my wife, wasn't around in the summers because her family, had a shore house down at the Jersey Shore, and that's where she would be during the summer. But one day we were skating like out in front of her apartment. I didn't even know her roommates had another roommate, and that's how I met Helene. She was just sitting there. I was like, "Who is that?" I never saw her before. A friend of mine knew her, and that's how we met.
Very romantic.
Very romantic. 96. We were
Oh
so
my
young.
goodness. Oh, those times.
Oh man.
So here's a question that I'm sure you probably get asked from time to time, and I know that you were really big into skating and everything, but if you weren't in animation, if God forbid, like everything worked out, but if it didn't work out, what do you think you would have been doing right now?
It's funny. It's such a funny question. My wife and my daughter laugh at me all the time because I have this sort of laundry list of jobs I think I would have been really good at, but they're so far from what I actually did. So I always say these jobs are what I would have been good at. And this is me. So who knows if I really would have been good at it, but this is what I'm saying.
Let's hear them.
I think I would have been a really good high school principal, especially in like a less, like a tougher area, an inner city area, say. I don't know where that comes from. I have no idea where that even comes from. I just think I'd be really good at it.
Like a Morgan Freeman type comes in.
Come on, old man. I've been waiting for this. Come on. Come on.
My wife and daughter literally belly laugh when I say this kind of stuff. I think I would have been a really good doctor, but I don't like blood or gore at all. So I don't know why. I think I'd be a really good doctor because I'd be a terrible doctor.
Crank it until the ribs swing open like a rusty drawbridge. No! Blood!
But
Do you watch a lot of doctor TV shows, maybe?
I don't know where. I think I'd have a really good bedside manner, but I would have to have all the nurses do like all the tough work. They would hate me because they would do all the jobs I'm supposed to be doing because I can't look at the blood and stuff. Terrible. I think I would be. I came up with this one a couple of weeks ago. I think I would be a really good priest.
Father Moriarty.
Because I think the guy, we go to church every Sunday. My wife's very spiritual. Me and Catholicism has been a bit of a battle, but I try. Yeah. But I just think they're not like when I see a priest give like a homily or a sermon or whatever, it's just like it's not interesting. I don't feel like they're trying to engage. I just think I would be good at that part of it. You know what I mean? Like trying to make it interesting, trying to like have people, trying to make it more of a conversation than being spoken at, So that was my latest one that they laughed at. They thought that was hilarious.
I don't know what they're talking about, Dagan. I think you would be a wonderful priest. You'd be a wonderful priest, doctor, it's high school principal.
High school principal.
Oh, those are amazing.
So in other words, no, there's nothing else I could actually do.
Well, you've romanticized some really difficult professions that you put yourself in there, but yeah.
There we go.
Well, no, but the thing that they all have in common is you have a wonderful ear and you listen and you have a heart. So, you're a very sympathetic guy. You have a pathetic ear. Okay. I just have a few more questions for you, sir, before we roll up into the end here. Okay. So Nick is really big into anime, and he always has been, but I've never been able to just like get it. And in my defense,
I remember one time I tried to introduce him to Rom the Half, and
you weren't having it.
He just was like, "What am I watching?"
There's certain things about anime that just like drives me nuts. Like, okay, full disclosure. So like your all's episode with My Neighbor Totoro, and I'm like, I want to go see that. They have this thing going on right now in Fathom Events, where in theaters, like every month, they're having a different Ghibli film.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So we saw Kiki's Delivery Service the other day, or a week or so ago, and it was really, really good. I liked it.
I really liked it.
Charming movie.
It was
very charming.
Yes. Perfect word for it. So like, I want to see My Neighbor Totoro, but I'm watching, Kiki's Delivery Service, and it's so cute. But there's just certain things about anime, like, for instance, they'll just a character will just bust out laughing out of nowhere as hard as they possibly can, and it's not funny at all. Like they're just like, what is happening?
I know exactly what you mean.
Mouth wide open, eyes.
Gotta have blue hair.
Yeah, you got it. Are you familiar with Strong Bad, Dagan?
No. Oh, Strong Bad, yes.
Oh,
yeah, of
well,
course.
Okay, yeah, like the Homestar Runner where they had like the anime episode.
Mouth
I
like
totally
very
forgot
small
about
and then
Strong.
ridiculously huge.
And for some reason, I got blue hair. You gotta have blue hair. Then there's my mouth. Real tiny when it's closed. Ridiculously huge when it's open.
I forgot about Strong Bad. Oh my god.
You guys have got to do a topic on that. It was so wonderful. That guy did that. I think it's two brothers actually, and they did it for years, and they just recently quit like 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
Really? Holy cow! They did it for that long.
They did it for a very long time. Like everyone in the world was on board with them for like a few years in the like early 2000s, I guess.
Right.
They just kept doing it for like 10 years.
That's amazing.
And I say that they just quit doing it recently, but maybe like 2010, 2011.
Still, that's a big run.
It's a good run, yeah. And,
oh my god.
Teen Girl Squad and Strong Bad and all those are just the best.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so like, but with anime, but the point I was trying to get to, and I almost lost myself there. But is there anything that you? And I think maybe Studio Ghibli, they're kind of different. You know, like they're maybe a good entry point. But what would you recommend a good entry point be for someone who's just unable to get into anime?
Yeah, it's hard. You know, it's hard. It's so funny. The anime has always been so polarizing. I even have animator friends that don't like anime at all. And you know, I have one animator friend who's a dear friend of mine, Joe, who I work with. He's one of my earliest animation friends, and I work with him now at Sesame too. And he's a wonderfully talented animator, very inspired and influenced by Disney. Can't stand anime. The only anime I've ever showed him that he liked was Akira, and he was like, "All right, I understand. This is good." Yeah. But we all know how different Akira is. Akira almost has a Ghibli-esque type thing where it's like it's so different. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the anime is interesting because I've always been drawn to it, but I could see it being polarizing, especially for Western audiences. Because it has a lot of Eastern, it has a lot of Eastern sensibilities that Westerners may find a little foreign. I always found it exotic. And for me, especially not being necessarily attracted to superheroes when I was a kid, like I wasn't really into Superman. You know, I wasn't really into Justice League or Batman.
Or Colin, my goodness.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that. You know, I just wasn't feeling, and I went through my little X-Men stage and my little Iron Man stage when I was younger. But yeah, there was something about anime that I was really drawn to. And I think a lot of it was that it's centered around young people, like young teenage characters. And I always liked that it's centered more around youthful characters. I thought was neat. I always thought the style was cool with the colored hair. It just seemed exotic to me. I always tell my wife, anime was the first thing, like Battle of the Planets, specifically G-Force back in the day, like in the late 70s, was like the first thing that I noticed as a kid being like, I don't want to go to like baseball practice. I just want to stay home and watch this. Like, I just want to look at this, fill my eyeballs with this and not do anything else. So for me, I was always really drawn to it. I think it's hard with anime though. I think what I would recommend is just trying different things. I would recommend One Punch Man. I only say that because not only is it wonderful, but I find a lot of people that weren't anime people really responding to it and talking about it. And for whatever reason, it's been an entry point. One Punch Man more than maybe anything I've heard of since maybe Ninja Scroll. If you've never seen Ninja Scroll back in the day, or Akira, or the Ghibli stuff, I would say that like One Punch Man just seems like an access point to anime for people. It's very different. It has a really wonderful sense of humor, which I think people find refreshing. It doesn't take itself very seriously. I really like Attack on Titan. I'm sure everybody's heard of Attack on Titan.
You've advocated for that many times, yeah.
Yeah, but it's very heavy. You know, it's very, very serious. So I don't know if that's what everybody's looking for. Like Ranma half is a great example of something that has a lot of
quirkiness.
It's quirky, it's cute. Yeah. it's humorous. It has a lot of levity. It's silly, you know.
Yeah. Maybe
So
it's
it
just
depends what
too
you
silly
look-
for me. I don't know.
I love it.
I know.
What do you like? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like fantasy?
I
you
do like sci-fi and fantasy, and it's there's like a triumvirate of nerddom. You know, like anime would just be like that third point. You know, like you'd think I would just be in there.
Yeah.
But no, like, but I feel like the Ghibli stuff is as close to like Disney. You know, like it has.
It is.
There's a softness to it.
Did you
at
not
least.
even really see like G-Force back in the day?
No. The only Japanese import that I just truly fell in love with was like Transformers.
Okay.
Sure. Oh yeah, I saw your shelf, by the way. Very nice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Very cool.
Yeah, love Transformers. It's one of my all-time favorite things. Like we've done a couple of episodes just Transformers stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And
What do you
love
think of the Unicron? What do you think of the HasLab Unicron?
Oh, it looks amazing.
It's gorgeous.
Dude,
but
how
it's like,
cool is that?
There's no way. Like I was just complaining about like having to spend $80 on that new Jetfire.
But even if cost wasn't even an issue,
Yeah.
it's just so big I wouldn't know where to put it.
I know. Where do you put that thing?
I know. Well, are you familiar with like the Siege toy line at all, Dagan?
Yes, I am.
So they had that what's the big rocket
Jetfire.
No, not Jetfire.
Oh, Omega Supreme.
Omega Supreme.
That Omega Supreme looks really cool, and it's expensive, but it's not like Unicron expensive, but it's
Right. It's like
massive.
manageable.
You would have to have some sort of special table laid out to even enjoy it.
I know.
I
know.
And I would just end up keeping it in the box and sticking it on top of a shelf or something.
I know.
Like every one of the like Walmart reissues, all those G1 reissues that I've been buying and just keeping in the box and putting on shelves.
Did you buy that Walmart? This was a while ago. You have to forgive me. I'm not even sure how long ago. That the Constructicons. What's his name? That he Devastator.
Yeah.
Devastator. Yeah. Did you buy that? That was a Walmart exclusive, right?
I did. I bought that. I got the Optimus Prime. It didn't include a trailer, but they still charged like $60 for.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
I got Hot Rod. I got Starscream. They just released Soundwave in the cassettes, so I got those, and a few of the mini bots like Bumblebee and Warpath Gears. All those little characters.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool.
Now,
we'll have to talk about Transformers on another show.
Yes, for sure. I would love to have you on again sometime in the future. We could just talk about Transformers.
I'm ready to keep going on about Unicron.
I know.
Oh man.
Okay. Moving on. So I wanted to ask you one more big question here.
Sure.
Now, I mentioned before that my son Logan is really interested in game design, and I've been able to take advantage of other guests. You know, like what advice would you give him if you were his age, 8 years old? You're kind of in that perfect sweet spot. They can go anywhere from there. Now, my daughter Allison, she just turned 4. She's shown an ability for like an art. She loves to draw in color, and she's actually not bad at it.
That's so cool.
What advice would you give an 8-year-old, like 8-year-old Dagan, 8-year-old, like when Allison gets older, like what would you tell her if she was interested in a career in animation or art?
Yeah, I would say practice, draw. If you're interested in animation and art specifically, and for your son who's interested in gaming, pursue it. You know what I mean? Keep your interest, your focus in it, practice it, learn everything you can about it, but always make sure that it's fun. Because if it becomes work or it becomes, then that takes the joy out of it, and that might, lead them to not want to do it. But, just stay on top of it. Learn what you can about it. Listen to professionals talk about it. YouTube is such a cool resource for that.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Rather than TikTok or whatever my daughter is into right now. It's like you could go on YouTube and listen to somebody lecture about the thing that you're interested in. Or look at tutorials. It's such a cool resource, and just have laser focus on that thing that you want to do, and know that you could do it. You could do whatever you want, and and that goes for the parents too. About I was really lucky enough to have parents that were very supportive, and of course my grandparents who were very supportive, and just kind of nurture that interest, because you can do it. Like even in animation, it's such a how many kids, guys, girls that I go to school with that actually do it for, they didn't see it all the way through because it's hard. It's competitive.
Yeah.
It takes a while to break in, but if you stick to it, just have that little bit of grit, you could do whatever you want to do. That, you know, that would be my advice. And that's real talk. That's not just lip service. You know, you could do anything you want as long as you love it, you'll do it.
We do live in the right country for that. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
You know, it's if you're passionate enough, just keep going. And I would like to say that you have wonderful parents. Like, from every story I've ever heard, you just have the best parents.
No, thanks. You know what? I'm very fortunate. They're awesome people. You know, they weren't perfect parents, but they were really loving and really supportive. You know, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, but
no, of course not.
Yeah, they're as good as parents as I could imagine, and we're really lucky. Yeah, we're really lucky to have them.
Good stuff. Okay, Dagan. So, like, this portion of the interview, this is something I like to call the guest book.
All right.
Because I usually ask every person we have on the show the same question, and it's just an opportunity for you to put your name in on the guest book. Cool. So the first thing I like to ask is, what was the first arcade you remember playing?
Oh, I saw. You know, this is a great question. I remember two. I have two specific memories. The first one I remember seeing and playing, I believe, was Donkey Kong. Yeah, the first Donkey Kong, and it was in the bowling alley. My mom was on a bowling league when I was very little, and it was in the middle of the bowling alley. Had a few arcade cabinets, and I remember being enamored not only with the game on screen, but with the cabinet art and the marquee art. I would just stare at it. I would just stare at it for hours. And, you know, not long after, you know, as you guys remember, you guys are at almost my age, you know, all the merchandise came out, the stuffed animals and the shirts and the sticker packs and, you know.
I've got a stuffed Donkey Kong somewhere from the 80s.
Oh, it's so good, dude. It's such a classic. And that game was probably the first one, because I'm sure Pac-Man came first for me. But that was the first one I remember being like, okay, there's a little story going on here. You know, there's this guy, this gorilla's bad. He's got his girlfriend. He's got to go rescue her. And, you know, looking at video games almost in like a format of like, okay, this is another thing, like a cartoon, like something I can watch on TV or on a movie screen. You know, it's telling a story. I remember that really registering with me. And the other one for me was in a supermarket growing up, was the Berserk cabinet.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Which I never played. I would always just see it from afar, like from the checkout line. I don't know why I never played it, and just being enamored again with the cabinet art. I remember it was that really dynamic pose of like the guy shooting the robot and the robot's exploding.
Do you remember
really graphic?
Nick, do you remember the discussion we had about the Atari 2600 where we both saw that same image? The Berserk cartridge. Yeah. It looks, if you look at it, it's like a shoulder of a robot. But Nick and I both saw a bug vomiting like
that red.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it's
so
the
weird.
Arm, but
just Google that image of the like Atari 2600 art, and it looks like a bug vomiting lava or something.
When I was a kid, that's how I saw it.
It's
so, I see it.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
So like that circle on his shoulder, that was like a big eyeball.
Yeah.
Oh, I see how you're seeing that.
You know what?
That is the cabinet art, I think.
So is it really?
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Oh yeah, I see what you guys are looking at. It's so weird.
You'll never unsee it now, sir.
When I was a kid, that's how I always saw it. It wasn't until way later that I thought, oh.
When you really look at it, you're like, why would it be a bug? Of course it's a robot.
That's so, dude, this image is so lame. This guy is so 70s. He's got his underwear on the outside of his pants.
Dude, I don't care. I maintain that the art on the Atari games is the best.
Oh, it's so good.
It's like so 70s album art. It's so epic.
Oh, it's so good. I lived in that world. Like, I would just live in that world for like 20 minutes at a time while my mom was checking out. Like, it was just like at the supermarket, you know? Oh my God. So those are the two for me. Those are my two earliest.
Those are good. Those are really good. Okay, next question. What is your all-time favorite arcade cabinet / game?
Oh my God, that's tough. That's tough. I would always have to divide it into categories where I would put fighting games separately because I was so into all the Capcom fighters, starting with Street Fighter, but every single Darkstalkers, all the Street Fighter, all the Marvelverse.
We're nodding completely in agreement.
Yeah, and you know, especially Neo Geo, but especially the Samurai Showdown games, which were they're in another class for me.
I always appreciated the Neo Geo art. I just didn't like the gameplay.
I had nobody to play them with.
I'm sorry. So now you caused a fight over here, Dagan. No, Nick was huge. We were both huge into the Capcom, like 100% there. But the Neo Geo, like I just never got. I love the art, but there's just something about the gameplay, like I just didn't love it.
Man, I love Samurai Showdown, King of Fighters.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah, Dagan, I saw on your Twitter account you'd posted something about a Samurai Showdown mini or miniature.
Oh, they put out a special.
Oh, the
they put out like
one?
a special. Yeah, the Yukio Tachibana one. Oh, I was like, dude, what did they make that just for me to buy it? Like,
No, it's like every time they keep releasing it, like at a classic, like everyone's gonna get the NES and the SNES, but like I'm getting the Genesis, I'm getting the TurboGrafx 16. I love the
me
TurboGrafx
too.
16.
I'm looking forward to that. Oh my god, because I can't afford that. I can't afford to collect for TurboGrafx 16.
It's like
it's too
$100.
expensive.
Yeah. I went ahead and pre-ordered it, Dagan. I'll deal with the repercussions another day.
Yeah. Hey, it's pretty, and they're still announcing games, so it looks like the value is going up and up.
I'm gonna modify that sucker and put what I want on it anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, next question for you, sir. What was your first home gaming console?
My first one was the Atari 2600, and my parents got it. In thinking back, especially when having conversations on Knockback, I realized that my parents probably bought it very close to, if not after, the notorious video game crash in '83, because I did not have that thing before '83. So I didn't know that crash was going on, but maybe that was the impetus for them to finally break down and buy it and buy a bunch of games, because I definitely didn't have that until, maybe it was '82, but I don't think so. I think it was '83. And so that was my very first, experience with it. I loved having it, and it was actually a treat for me because they let me keep a TV in my room with the Atari. Mm-hmm. I didn't have cable hooked up to the TV, but I had the Atari on it.
It's probably black and white too, am I right?
You know what? That's a good question. It probably was black and white. It probably was black.
I totally had one of those black and whites that was like, it had a handle and it was a little tiny screen, and it was also a radio. and I was gaming on that sucker, man, for a long time.
We were hardcore. Our generation was so hardcore. We
really
did what we had to do.
These young kids these days. Okay, next question for you, sir.
Okay.
So what's your favorite home gaming console, and what game is your favorite for that console?
Oh, okay. It's a tough one. Pound for pound, I probably have to give it to the 16-bit generation.
Oh.
It's very kind of close for me between, I love the NES. That's really what I primarily collect for. And I love the Famicom and the Super Famicom too. But for me, as far as memories go, it's sort of equally torn between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, because I was a Super NES and SNES guy, and my best friend was a Genesis guy. So very nostalgic for me.
I didn't realize you were an appreciator of the Genesis.
Oh, I love the Genesis. That's all I've been playing lately is Genesis. Yeah, I'm really going through like a big Genesis thing right now. I'm really reliving my 16-year-old childhood with the Genesis right now. Those two consoles probably for me would be my favorite. I would say, it's a pretty hackneyed answer at this point, but I would say Link to the Past is probably my favorite. And on the Genesis, I don't know. Genesis has a lot of ones that I really love. I've been really actually enjoying the troubleshooter games, the Battlemania games. But they were really weird. They were Victo Kai. They were kind of not easy to find back then.
I can picture the maker, the Victo Kai boxes.
Yeah, they were really cool. Everything. The Genesis just in general. I think maybe Phantasy Star 2 and 3. Really nostalgic for me. And then some of the ones I missed along the way, that I didn't get to play the first time around. So, yeah, but I think the 16-bit generation for me you know why? Because when we were at our age, we were like 15, 16, 17 when the 16-bit thing kicked off.
Right.
Those were the first consoles to make us say, like, all right, we don't need to go to the arcade anymore. Atari made you want to go to the arcade. Atari's like, all right, can I stop playing this thing now? So it's like, and even the NES was like, all right, I get why this is cool, but there's still room for arcade games and better graphics and better sound and whatever the arcade could bring that this can't.
Yeah.
But when the 16-bit generation rolled around, it was like, all right, this is video games. Like, look how good it's getting. Of course, it got better after that. But
that's a good point. It was that constant pursuit of arcade port perfection. and Nick and I lament all the time about the 8-bit days where you thought you were getting close, like when the Ninja Turtle arcade came out. It was like basically
Right.
the '89 arcade, but it was just 2 players. But it was pretty close.
Right.
And of course, infamously, when Ninja Gaiden come out, and Nick and I were huge fans of the arcade, and this is a pre-internet world, so Ninja Gaiden came out, and I saw it at like a
Totally
video.
different game.
Totally different game. And you see it at a video store, you pick up the box, you're like, what the hell is this?
Right. You look at the images in the back, you're like, this is not Ninja Gaiden.
No, it turned out really well. Like that's a fun game, but
Oh, they're so good.
I felt so betrayed. Okay, so here's the next question's a little, different. So what is your favorite all-time game character sprite?
Okay.
And I mean like, a Pac-Man or like Mario or like a Mega Man type thing. Like what sprite are you drawn to?
You know what I really love? I mean, talking about Ninja Gaiden, I think the Ryu Hayabusa sprite is, if I'm thinking about especially home console, especially NES, I think that sprite I always really loved.
Yeah.
For some reason. I think it seemed so much more kinetic, the way he moved, that way he was fast. He was actually running. It seemed like such a departure from like Simon Belmont or the Mega Man sprite was cool too. I mean, my favorite sprite work of all time is probably in the Samurai Showdown games. Probably hit its peak in Samurai Showdown 2 and 3. I mean, that was like just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And fully animated, beautifully animated sprite work. But for as far as an individual sprite that's memorable, I would probably go with Ryu Hayabusa. I like that sprite a lot.
Have you seen the I don't know if you ever look into like homebrews or like ROM hacks. Have you ever seen the Deadpool version of Ninja Gaiden where they have
No.
I haven't seen that.
It's totally Ninja Gaiden, but some guy or some team, they took the Deadpool and made Ryu the main character.
Oh, I have to look at that.
It's cool. You'll fall down the rabbit hole of ROM hacks if you ever get into it. I want to do an episode on those, just ROM hacks.
Oh, you guys should do that.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with that world.
It's cool. And again, it's like a passion, a dedication. Like these guys, they do this thing.
Oh my God, I know.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. That's it.
Okay, and the last guest book question I have for you, sir, is what artist would you say is your greatest inspiration? Like,
wow.
It's a loaded question, I know.
That's tough. Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, really pound for pound, it would probably be, like we talked about earlier in the show, my grandpa had a huge impact on me. If I was, talking about an artist that I didn't know, I would just rattle them off. I would say, Pablo Picasso had a huge impact on me. And, my art, my sensibility, Vaughn Bodie, Bill Watterson, certainly huge. Akira Toriyama was a big one for me. In the anime, I would say probably Konichi Sonata was a big one for me. Leiji Matsumoto. I mean, Studio Ghibli. I mean, there's so many. I'm cheating. I'm totally cheating by not naming just one. But
no, it's fine. It's totally fine. We cheat all the time on our own show because you got to respect everybody, right?
You have to. Yeah, you have to. I'm going to think of like 10 answers as soon as we end the show. That's a good start. No, that's a very good start. Okay. All right, sir. So that brings us into the finale. We like to play a little game. I know that you guys like to play a little game on your podcast as well. Yes.
So our game is called You Ought to Know. And it's 5 multiple choice questions that I specifically designed around the guest.
Okay.
So you don't know what it's going to be about, but it should have something to do with Dagan Moriarty.
Okay, all right. Okay, I hope I do good.
You're going to do fine, I think. Okay, but I will tell you that the best anyone's ever done is 3 out of 5.
Wow. Okay, let's see if I can beat that.
Okay, so all right, question number 1.
Okay.
So you worked for the beloved children's television show Sesame Street, which is turning 50 years old, as we'd mentioned earlier, producing more than 4,500 episodes.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
My question for you is, which of the following networks has Sesame Street never aired an episode?
Okay,
never aired an episode. Is it
never
A,
aired?
HBO?
Okay.
B, NET? C, PBS? or D, the Disney Channel?
It's the Disney Channel.
You are correct, sir. You are 1 for 1. Now I was a little nervous for you. I was like, he's got to get this right.
Now, did you guys know Disney under Michael Eisner tried to, like, in a hostile bid? You know, Disney owns Henson. You guys probably know that, but
right.
So they own like Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy and everything like that. But at that time, when they bought Henson, they tried to buy Sesame Workshop as well. So Bert, Ernie, Cookie, Big Bird, all that kind of stuff. And Joan Gans Cooney, who was like the head board member of Sesame Workshop at the time, like dug her heels in against Michael Eisner and like refused to sell. But like Disney, like it was like almost like a hostile bid. They almost lost everything to Disney except for this one woman who held out because Henson wanted to sell. Henson like relinquished after a while, was like gave up, and she was like, "No, we can't sell this to Disney." And that I was always fascinated with that story.
It's
amazing.
Funny. Like I love Disney. It's like Nintendo. They're just like one of those sacred, companies for me.
Yeah.
But there's something inherently underneath. It feels kind of evil about them. Like why do they want to buy everything?
I know. They own The Simpsons now.
I know,
dude,
right?
How crazy is that?
No more Fox, like the brum bum brum bum. Like you're not gonna get that anymore. Like.
Oh, I forgot about
it's
that.
Insane.
You're right.
Yep.
I know. That sucks.
Yeah, but, I love Disney. We'll see how it,
I do too.
I'm excited about the Disney Plus network. There's all those cool new shows they've got advertised.
Dude,
it's coming out.
It's going to be huge. They're going to make another trillion bill.
They're going to come back and buy you guys. This is what's going to happen.
That's probably it.
They're going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Okay. All right. Question number 2. You're 1 for 1. You're off to a great start.
Okay.
So which of these animated movies is the highest ticket selling movie of all time?
Okay.
Not gross, ticket selling, and domestic, not worldwide.
Okay.
Is it A, 101 Dalmatians, B, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs,
okay,
C, The Lion King, or D, Sleeping Beauty?
Wow, this is really hard. I'm gonna say Snow White.
That's your final answer, sir?
That's my final answer.
You're correct.
All right.
You nailed it. I was a little bit nervous for you. Yeah, so 101 Dalmatians sold 99,900,000 tickets.
Wow.
The Lion King sold 89,200,000 tickets. Sleeping Beauty, 73,700,000 tickets.
Okay.
But Snow White, 109 million tickets.
That's amazing. Yeah, they staked their whole success on that movie, man. That's amazing. Oh, that's so cool.
Do you have a favorite like classic Disney animated style movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a tie between 101 Dalmatians and Peter Pan for me.
Okay. And I think I've heard that before, but those are great. Those are great. Okay, question number 3, 2 for 2. I'm getting nervous for you. This is
not
so
bad,
far so good. Yep. Okay, so here's where it's going to get a little bit more local for you. So your hometown of Long Island,
yes,
is the birthplace of many famous and wonderful things.
Okay.
The MRI, the wireless radio, the Baldwin brothers. But it's the Long Island iced tea that I'm most thankful for.
Oh, okay.
According to the International Bartenders Association, which of these primary alcohols do not belong in the LIT? Okay. Is it A, tequila?
Okay.
B, white rum?
Okay.
C, bourbon? Or D, vodka?
Oh, man.
Which one does not belong in the Long Island iced tea?
I'm going to have to say, you know what? I'm not really big into Long Island iced teas. I think they're delicious. I just don't have them a lot. I'm going to say, wait, what were the choices again?
Okay, the choices are A, tequila.
Okay.
B, white rum.
Okay.
C, bourbon.
Okay.
Or D, vodka.
Oh, it's bourbon. It's got to be bourbon.
You're absolutely right. It's bourbon. No, I don't think you're like a drinker like myself. I'm not like a big drinker, but I thought
no, not at all.
For sure, like you were gonna nail that one. Okay. 3 for 3, Dagan. I'm so excited. You've already equaled the best.
That's not bad. I'm very proud of myself.
You should be. All right, two to go, sir. Okay.
All right.
So, without a doubt, the greatest invention of all time was unleashed in 1958 at the Brookhaven National Laboratory when William, and I'm not sure if I'm going to butcher this name, so forgive me, Higginbotham unveiled what is believed to be the first ever video game. What was the name of the game?
Oh,
Okay. So was it A, Pong?
Okay.
B, table tennis? C, tennis for two? Or D, electronic tennis?
Oh my God, this is tough. Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna say.
Like every choice is basically.
I know.
No,
it's
this
some
is hard.
variation of a tennis game. 1958.
You know what? I'm just gonna go with electronic tennis.
Oh no!
What is it?
It's called tennis for two.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh, I'm heartbroken.
I'm sorry, Brookhaven, I let you down.
Dagan, how could you? That's okay. So you still have a chance to be the champion, the all-time.
Oh right,
greatest.
okay. I still got a chance. Okay.
All right. This one might be a bit mean, but here we go. Question number 5, and for all the marbles, sir. Out of the famous Disney 9 old men, which actually lived to be the oldest?
Oh, okay. I think.
So I got your multiple choice questions, right? Your
multiple choice. That's right. Okay.
Don't answer just yet.
Okay.
He might just say it.
He might, and like Dagan would know. I bet. Okay. Was it A, Mark Davis?
Okay.
B, Ollie Johnston? C, Frank Thomas? Or D, Les Clark?
Oh, I don't know who. I know it's Ollie or Frank, but I don't remember who died first. You know what? I'm gonna say. God damn it. I'm gonna say Ollie lived the longest.
You think Ollie was the oldest?
I think so.
You're correct.
Yes.
The champion.
You are the champion, Dagan. Someone's gonna have to knock you off.
Great questions. Really good questions.
Thank you, sir. So just so everyone knows, Mark Davis lived to be 86. Frank Thomas also lived to be 86.
Okay.
Les Clark was a young one. He lived to 71.
Wow.
He was taken early. And Ollie Johnston lived to the ripe old age of 89.
Wow. Yeah, Frank and Ollie were like attached at the hip. Like they were they were literally like best friends since they were kids. They lived next to each other their whole lives and everything like that. When Frank died, I was like, Ollie's gonna go. Like, there's no way they could live without each other. Like were like an old married couple, right? They really were.
Yeah.
They really were. Yeah, unbelievable. That's a great question. Great question.
And I'm proud of you, man. 4 out of 5. So,
thank you very much.
And since you're the champion, I have a little parting gift for you here. I found this T-shirt from a Shirt Punch, and they're not a sponsor or anything, but it's like the Brady Bunch on the front, but it says the Ghibli Bunch, and it has a bunch of Studio Ghibli characters in the square.
That's so cool.
So I thought my man Dagan would love that, so I'll send that out to you.
Oh, that's awesome! Thank you so much. That sounds awesome.
My pleasure. Okay, well, that's pretty much the end of the episode. I appreciate you so much. You've hung in there with me for quite some time.
Oh no, dude, it was a pleasure. It's like listen, I love talking about nerdy stuff. So we could do nerd talk all day long. It's a pleasure. It's not work.
And I hesitate, but I'm gonna have to ask you one more question.
Please, sure. Of
course. I'm saving it for the end. I know that you're about to unleash upon the world your very own show, your own podcast.
Yes.
Are you prepared to give any information right now on the format, the name, or when that's going to drop?
Okay, so things changed a lot for the better. Very exciting developments with the show in the last couple of days, but I do have a name. I'm not going to share it yet because I'm vetting the copyright of it right now.
Okay.
It took me literally 5 months to single out a name. I had I can't even tell you a list of like hundreds of names, but it's going to be for now, it's going to be an audio podcast. It's going to be scripted. I'm going to write it and then I'm going to record it and hopefully not have to edit it too much. And it's going to be, the plan right now is going to be a bi-weekly show. It's going to come out every 2 weeks, and it's going to be centering on current nerd culture, media. It's going to be a lot of the topics are going to center around animation, but it's not going to be necessarily animation specific show. It's going to be mostly relevant, currently in the news, pop culture sort of topics. And I don't know exactly when it's going to roll out, but I'm going to put out because things have changed, and I think we're going to distribute it a little different than I was going to originally distribute it. Mm-hmm. And there'll be more details on this soon. But I'm going to put out a pilot episode just to see how people dig it. But it may not roll out now for a little while, being that it might have gotten bought by somebody. so
really,
it might not be. Yeah. So it might
would that be someone that you're already partnership right now?
Possibly.
Okay. Yes. Can I ask you one other question? So it's going to be scripted. Will you have a guest host or like a host with you or anything? Or?
No, it's going to just be me. But I do want to have guests on from time to time. It's going to be scripted content, centering around a very specific topic each week. I'm going to stagger it. I'm going to pick a topic for every 2 weeks, and then on the staggering show, the in between show, I'm going to leave it up to the listeners to choose from a list. And when that topic is chosen from the listener base, then I'll do a show that you guys pick, that the fans pick, or that the listeners pick. So it's going to have a lot of audience participation. It's going to be the listenership is going to have a really big part to play in the show. I think that's really important. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and it's just going to be fun to talk about relevant things, in media and art and creativity and animation, but other things too. So I can't wait to share. I was really getting ready to share everything and roll it out, but yeah, things have developed. Exciting developments have happened, so now I have to hold off a little longer.
It's
going to be worth it.
I hate to push, but do you think this pilot will drop by the end of the summer, or are we looking at?
Yeah,
fall?
That was the plan. I still want to drop it by the end of August because I want people to know what's coming. I really want people to know what's coming. So. And you know what? It should be interesting because I don't think that many people are doing it the way I want to do it right now about the things I want to do it about. So hopefully it'll be refreshing, and hopefully people will find it interesting. But I want to see. I want to see.
Sorry, will it be on YouTube and also audio only, or will it be?
I think so. I mean, ultimately, the goal for the show is to be a YouTube show. I want it to be a scripted, edited show with visuals as well, whether I'm on the camera or it's just graphical stuff on the camera. But I do want to make it an actual show, a YouTube show. But for now, it's going to be an audio form. But I would like the audio form to still be on YouTube as well as the podcast services. So we're looking at that. We're looking at that right now.
I know it's a lot of extra work doing the YouTube component of it.
It is.
But I really feel that it adds a lot of value to have something to see along with the audio.
I agree with you 100%. I really do. I think just the audio is sort of, it shortchanges it a little bit, especially for what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if the Patreon support could be high enough, eventually I want to do that for sure, 100% for sure. And find a way to do it, even if the Patreon support is a little lower than expected.
I'm on board, whatever it is.
I appreciate that so much. It means so much to me that people are excited for it, which is, I mean, if there was 10 people excited for it, I'd be psyched.
Colin kind of like half jokes is half serious. You're like the star of Knockback.
Well, I always appreciate when he says that, but
well,
it's really
Colin's
hard to
a very
see.
humble guy. He's a very generous guy. So yeah.
He's unbelievable. I mean, just doing a show with him is like, yeah. I mean, how articulate he is and how smart he is. I mean, it's unbelievable.
He's a wonderful person. Like I always loved him. I've followed him for years and years through, Nick. He did IGN, and then he started his own company, and that's where I got to know him. I didn't really know him at IGN, and then some things happened. Then he started his own company just by himself, and then I followed him over to that, and that's how I got to find out about Dagan.
Cool.
So Dagan, man, thank you so much for being on our show.
My pleasure.
Taking the time to spend with us, the little guy.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Second of all, I think your guys' show is great. I think it's really awesome. Really nice quality.
Thank you so much for
I only
saying that.
checked out a couple episodes so far, but I really liked what I see. I like your outro music. I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
I do. I like it.
I can't take credit for composing that, but thank you.
Really? How long have you guys been doing the show?
We've been doing it since 2017?
A couple years.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long.
I do a couple of podcasts, but Nick and I have been doing the BitGeek podcast for a couple of years now. I think we just celebrated our 2nd year anniversary recently.
You're doing a good job. You got some subs on there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, for people to develop a little bit of a fan base and everything like that. It means a lot. You guys are doing a good job.
Well, hey, if like 2 or 3 more people check us out because of you, then I'll be happy.
Oh, well, hopefully that happens.
I'm sure it'll be maybe more than a couple, but we do it because it's fun and we have no expectations of getting paid. We just like hanging out, gives us an excuse to be together and just talk about things that we like.
Yeah, and it resonates. That it's authentic. You could tell you guys are having fun. I listen to a lot of stuff. I'm a YouTube junkie, so I listen to a lot of stuff. You can always tell when people are having fun. It's authentic, and there's some knowledge there, and just people are having a good time. That really speaks to something that's of quality. I think you guys are doing a nice job.
Thanks, Dagan. Can you let people know how they can follow you?
Yeah, sure. So we talked about it before. On Instagram, you could follow me at Dagan Likes to Draw. I got to keep up with my Instagram. I've been doing pretty bad with that. On Twitter, I'm at Dagan1973 on Twitter. And you can listen to our podcast. It's CLS Knockback. You can find that on iTunes, all the podcast services. Again, it's CLS Knockback. And it's just a retro / nostalgia, nerd culture podcast. We talk about stuff.
It's the best retro nostalgia podcast.
Oh, dude, that means a lot. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
I mean that. It's the best.
It's a labor of love. We love doing it.
I never miss an episode.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, dude. Thanks for listening to the show.
No problem. All right, man. Well, we'll just do our own little wrap up later. We'll let you go. Like, we won't make you stick around for that.
Well, listen, guys. Thanks again for having me. Thanks for thinking of me. It was an honor. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'll get like your if you I don't know, like a post office box or something. I'll send you out your T-shirt that I talked about.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was going to send it to you even if you bottomed out 0 for 5. I didn't think you would, but I saw it. I was like, man, that's something he would totally dig. And as a thank you for taking the time out and everything.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You bet. And I'll send you a message, let you know when the episode drops if you want.
Oh, please, definitely. And I'll push it out on Twitter, and I'll talk about it on. I'll make a little Instagram movie and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, sweet.
Of course.
So like ordinarily, like when we would do interviews, I'd have like a video. Is it like, can I get your permission? Like, is there like a photo or something that I could like show of you? Like,
oh yeah, of course. Yeah. And if you guys want to do this again, we could do video. It's totally up to you guys.
Oh my gosh. I would love to do another topic with you.
Yeah. Anytime. Just shout. I'll send you a picture. I have to think. My wife has all the good stuff. She keeps it.
Just send us a really goofy picture, like cross-eyed, like booger hanging out of the nose, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh, I have good ones. My daughter's always sending me really funny ones that she finds on my phone that she thinks are hilarious, which is the ones I think are good pictures of me. Yeah. There's always somebody making fun of me in this house.
Oh my god. But you know what? You have a good sense of humor, so.
You have to in this house.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Dagan, I will let you get back to it, man. I will talk to you later. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Great job.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, gents.
He's pretty cool.
Dagan's the best. Yeah. So that was Dagan Moriarty. Nick, what did you think of our guest?
He was great.
Is he not the best?
Oh yeah, I definitely need to check out his podcast.
Yeah, CLS Knockback. It's you can do a search for it in iTunes, whatever podcast. Knockback is totally in my wheelhouse, and I've always related very much to Dagan because again, he's kind of like got that nerd cred, and he
just seems so genuine and just really good guy.
it'll be really hard to top Dagan as far as guests go. But
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna try. You can actually follow us at BitGeek. We have a Facebook page, the BitGeeks on Facebook. We're on Twitter at BitGeek Podcast. You can find me at Ron Avis.
And I'm at Nicholas J. Wright.
And you can check us out on YouTube. If you're listening to us in audio only and you didn't know, we do have a YouTube channel where we take the exact same show and you get to actually see our smiling faces and not just hear our smiling voices. And you can find us at youtube.com/BitGeek. And of course, if you're only familiar with us on YouTube and you want to listen to us, we have quite a few people who just want to listen, and our shows tend to run kind of long, so I get it. Just do a search in whatever app you go by. Like if you listen on Spotify or iTunes, and you can just do a search for BitGeek and you'll find us there. Send us a like, drop a review if you don't mind. Let us know you like the show if you hate it, or maybe not. But but we love hearing any kind of feedback from Nick and I. Anytime somebody interacts with us or like drops some sort of a comment, takes a few moments of
seeing the comment.
Yes. Just take a moment of your day to just let us know that you watched it or listened to it, or it means the world to us. So anyways, that's been our episode with Dagan Moriarty. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I did.
I did.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.